Earlier this year, Sri Lanka, the country of Sri Lanka, fell into disrepair. A lot of media outlets were trying to tell you that it was all about, economic instability, but right at the bottom of that was the ESG, the Environment Social Governance System that is pushed by the WEF. There's a lot of acronyms that are in that, okay? And it sounds like one of those high level, high concept conspiracy theories, but hey man, it successfully took down a country. Is it really a conspiracy theory to this point in time anymore? Yeah, I don't really think so. You take a look at a bunch of the governing policies that are over a bunch of the biggest companies that are in the world. It's all in service to this ESG score, this invisible governing principle. It's a secret boys club that's in there, okay, where a bunch of secrets are changed, okay, and it's for people who are going to be in charge of the new world order. If I'm just lay it out exactly as it is now, okay, do I think that it's a foregone conclusion that everybody's just going to buy into the ESG score and that's going to be the way of the world moving forward? No. And I think anybody who tries to push that, it's like, oh, the ESG is taking over and there's just no purpose and you don't even have to worry about it anymore. You're just Blackpill doomers, and the Blackpill is a suppository, so stick it up your ass and take your shitty opinions and go fuck your mother. I don't want to hear from you because you are a defeatist and we don't need you around here, okay? But what we can do is an autopsy, because it was a blatant example of how disastrous and how ruinous these policies are when they are enacted in the real world. Sure, it tries to push this whole climate free agenda, okay, there's no greed, it's a big utopian society. It's never going to happen because those goddamn people get in the way, and well, we don't really want to mention what would happen if we got all the people out of the way. I think you catch my drift. But taking a look at Sri Lanka specifically, is now entrenched in an economic collapse and a humanitarian crisis. Are they still actually rioting that's over there? Because there's a lot of riots that are happening. A whole bunch of ones that you don't want to be talking about, especially in Brazil right now. That's a funny situation that I got to do more of a deep dive on, because they are not taking that election kindly, and it's not just a couple of fringe people with unacceptable ideas that are out there taking to the streets. They're in the thousands. They're in the tens of thousands that are out there on the street. There's a lot of fucking folks, okay? Then there's that other set of protests and riots that, I don't know, man, they just don't pass the smell test over there in Iran. But again, those are different things, and we're talking specifically about ESG right now, okay? But yes, Sri Lanka specifically, a little more than a year ago, after the federal government adopted organic agriculture policies that adhere to the global environmental, social, and governance trend, ESG, for those of you in the back. Now, okay, you remember hearing about those Dutch farmers and all of the farmers that were around there and how they were protesting, all about reduction of nitrogen. That's an ESG policy, okay? That's when all this stuff immediately started to kick off, and the whole environmental social governance system that went from being just a boardroom talking point down there for Klaus Schwab to being an implementable policy that's going to have ruinous effects. Case in point, Sri Lanka. This past summer, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, I think I got that right, announced that he would be stepping down after thousands of citizens stormed his presidential residence. Well, I can't go back to the capital, so I guess I'm just going to abdicate my post. See ya, deuces. The prime minister was supposed to do that at the same time, but then I seen some waffling that's going to be there, so I don't know if he's been trampled or not. Who actually fucking knows at this point? Okay, so RJ there, and this is what him and his friends call him, had been transferred to an undisclosed location, resulting in Parliament Speaker Mahinda Rapa Abawardena, confirming a peaceful transition. The political upheaval led Ranil Wickremesinghe, yes, who had served as prime minister on six separate occasions, to become the new president. Oh, that's what happened to the prime minister. Oh, okay, he was leading the opposition. Okay, the people who were storming the capital. Okay, makes some sense. Okay, despite the new government, the Southeast Asian state has struggled to put a halt to its economic crisis and political chaos. The annual inflation rate surged to 66% in October. That's hyperinflation, my guys. While the economy has slipped into a recession, yeah, no doubt. The rupee has lost 73% of its value against the US dollar. Yes, the global standard. So that's not good. That's really not good. country's current financial crisis, which is the worst it has been since declaring independence from the British in 1948, kicked into overdrive in early 2021 when the Rajapaksa government announced an overhauling of farming practices, all in service of the glorious and great ESG. Colombo instituted, a national ban on the use of importation of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides for key export crops, including coconut, rice, rubber, and tea. Seems like it's pretty important to the people of Sri Lanka, or at least to the economy, as it were, because there's a lot of people out there that, normally would be working, but have been put out of jobs because they can't use fertilizer because reasons, I guess. This is how I will make your country rich again by 2025, Rajapaksa declared at the World Economic Forum before the COVID pandemic. Okay. The government decree also garnered a jubilant response from environmentalists worldwide, including Sadhana Shiva, an Indian author and environmental activist. Have you actually done anything, or do you just hold signs outside of places that you could never actually afford to get into? Because why are we taking the advice of these fucking stinking bums? Like, who fucking cares what you have to say? Let us all join hands with Sri Lanka taking steps towards a poison-free, poison cartel-free world for our health and the health of our planet. Oh, that shit is fucking haram. Okay, Wall Street also championed the move as late as November of 2021. How's that working out for you? Not but 6 months later, they were storming the Capitol because people were fucking starving in their homes when the government was beginning to shift its ESG focus. Sri Lanka would be in a better position to be able to attract sizable foreign direct investments as well as achieve its sustainability goals when all fall in line and see through the very same strategic lens from defining how value is created, delivered, and measured across all verticals, said Bunwasha Wurjashuria. Okay, partner, transaction, advisory services, Ernst & Young. Great, wonderful, fantastic. The policy directive extended Sri Lanka a near-perfect score. Oh, yay! From the environmental impacts, according to the World Economic Research in London. How adorable. However, after just several months of decade-long initiatives, officials reported to a collapse in the crop yields that led to today's food inflation rate of 100%. In November of 2021, Rajapaksa partially lifted the ban on chemical fertilizers and granted the private sector permission to import them to ensure food production would remain intact. The president also offered $200 million in direct compensation for 1.1 million farmers and an extra $149 million in price subsidies. But you can only keep that going for so long if your import and export business has been driven and ground to a halt. The government insisted that the adjustment in policy did not mean the country was reversing its organic farming efforts. Oh my God. Okay, if all things were equal, organic farming would definitely 1000% be the preferred way to go. But given what they're actually exporting, do you actually need organic rubber? Does anybody actually care about that stuff? Yeah, I don't really think so, okay? Pesticides and fertilizers are needed in a bunch of different places. From the things that you eat directly out of the ground without going through any sort of processing, getting them organic is terrific and wonderful, fantastic. It's the way that I eat and the way that I tell you to, at least consider changing your diet towards on my other channel. But it comes at a delta. It's more expensive than your regular produce, okay? I'd consider it to be worth it, but it's a change that you have to make and be willing to take, okay? Mostly because organic farming is not economical. It is not feasible for the mass population, okay? To mass produce an organic farm, okay? It's something that you can do outside in a window box, okay? In your own personal garden at home. But if you're looking after acres and acres of crops, okay, because you can deal with some insects in your small back garden, but you can't deal with insects on acres of on land, okay? That's why growing the crops in a timely fashion, care of fertilizer is incredibly necessary, and keeping the pests and the weeds away with pesticides is necessary. Now, I'm not saying go out there and use DDT, okay? That stuff's pretty toxic to you. But if there's some middle ground that's out there, okay, and it can be washed off and it doesn't infect the crop too much or at all, terrific, fantastic. Use that alternative, obviously, every single day of the week. But to think that you can just switch infrastructure like that overnight, it's naive at best, and it's, treacherous at worst. In 2022, the country had been forced to import approximately $450 million worth of rice as domestic products cratered by 20% in the first half of the year. In the first 6 months of 2022, imported cereals increased by more than 42%. The national tea industry had taken a significant hit, with economic losses totaling $425 million, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Great, wonderful, fantastic. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to move to organic products. Okay, everybody's just going to go ahead and switch, and we're going to offer subsidies and all that stuff to make sure that that takes place. Oh, wait, we're not producing literally anything that we need in order to maintain ourselves as a country. We'll just spend more money in order to bring in the crops. So it's all right if other people don't adhere to the policies that you're doing, as long as, see how stupid this ends up getting? Okay, so the human toll of organic farming. Let's break this down a little bit further. As we saw in Sri Lanka, the production of developing nations are disproportionately hurt by food insecurities driven by well-intentioned do-gooders who don't consider the economic and practical outcomes of their mandates. And that is Chris Raleigh, the CEO of Harvest Returns, telling the Epoch Times. Any regulation that requires measurement of carbon emissions in agriculture will cause undue burdens and expenses on small family farms. Near-term food securities must be a priority for policymakers over the environmental factors. Indeed, the situation may not improve heading into 2023. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations warned that Sri Lanka had been crippled by poor harvest and cattle feed, fruits, grains, and vegetables for 2 consecutive seasons. Ooh, 2022 and 2021. So when did all these policies go into place? Oh, right. They're the direct correlation that led to this stuff happening. So why are we focusing on this? Like Sri Lanka has fallen. I don't really make it a topic of a discussion on the channel. Like, I talked about it when it happened because the storming of the Capitol is newsworthy for very sensitive reasons that mass media don't want to tell you. Oh, people are hungry. Well, why are they hungry? Oh, because they are. Shut up. The president is stepping down. But then nothing happened. La, la, la. Okay, so you see that these policies fail in fucking real time. Okay, like it's a disastrous situation, and it should serve as a wake-up call for many people that are out there. Oh, and it was, but just not in the way that you would hope it would. Federal agencies become ESG activists. Biden's whole government a plan to enact an environmentalist agenda. Oh boy, it's coming to your shores very, very shortly. So hopefully this can be corrected before anything ends up happening. House Republicans produced a 1,000-page report on November 4th detailing how the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigations, oh hi FBI, you've been doing such good work this year, have shifted their focus towards targeting conservative Americans who protest at abortion clinics. What does abortion have to do with ESG? I don't get it. And parents who protest at school board meetings. But the politicization of federal law enforcement is just the tip of the iceberg. Oh, I figured out what abortion has to do with that. Okay, because another person means carbon footprint, even of one individual. So if you want to get the old big suck of that and take care of that kid beforehand, that would be great, so that the elites could have more place to roam around. So if you could just get rid of the poor kids, that would be great. Since Joe Biden assumed the presidency nearly 2 years ago, nice verbiage that you have there. I like that. The Biden administration has been relentless in redirecting virtually every federal agency towards activism for climate and social justice, and aligning the federal government in a lockstep with the corporate, environmental, social, and governance movement. Among his first actions in January of 2021, Biden issued his executive order on advancing racial equity. Yeah, he doesn't want the country to become, as I quote, a racial jungle. Oh no, something different. Now he's had a turn of heart, I guess. An ambitious whole of government equity agenda, and he appointed Susan Rice, fuck you, to lead the Domestic Policy Council and to coordinate efforts to embed equity principles, policies, and approaches across the federal government. God, kill me. The effort diverted federal agencies from their designated function, and in some cases even pushed them to take action outside their legal authority. Great. Under this new regime, even the most technocratic U.S. agencies like the Federal Reserve have taken up the ESG cause. Tasked with the responsibility of fighting inflation and keeping unemployment low, they failed. The Fed is one of America's key bank regulators, with a mandate to ensure that our financial system is secure and robust. However, in the midst of record inflation and a deepening recession, the Fed under the Biden administration has taken on environmental and racial causes. Great. This prompted retiring Senator Pat Toomey, fuck you, ranking member of the Senate Banking Committee, to notify Fed officials that their focus on politically charged social causes was wholly unrelated to the Federal Reserve's statutory mandate. It's like, what does all this race shit have to do with the fucking numbers? Well, math is racist. I understand. This is gobbledygook. Sounds like a bunch of commie horseshit. Following the government mantra that personnel is policy, Biden nominated activist senior officials to the Fed like Sarah Bloom Raskin. Probably a family member of Jamie Raskin. That seems to make sense. She criticized the Fed for not following European governments in their pursuit of environmental goals. Raskin said that America's bank regulators stand out in stark contrast to the financial regulators of other rich countries for a fucking reason. Why do you think one is weathering the storm better than every other one that's out there? Okay, because they bought in hook, line, and sinker. And even as bad as America is right fucking now, there's a good chance you guys won't fucking freeze to death during the winter. Just saying. Raskin was ultimately rejected by Senator Joe Manchin when he withdrew his support, but another Biden nominee with similar views, Lael Brainard, was subsequently approved as vice chair in May and prompted the Fed's number 2 post. Great, wonderful, fantastic. Under Biden's watch, the DOJ, another shitty institution, in May said that it was launching a comprehensive environmental justice strategy. How the fuck does that work? We're gonna lock up trees if you don't process enough carbon dioxide, you bigots. Communities of color, indigenous communities, yes, because TP smoke is damaging to the ozone layer. Does anybody care about that anymore? It's been a minute. And low-income communities to bear the brunt of the harm caused by environmental crime. Yeah, because all poor people live outside in tents and it gets hotter and they can't afford air conditioning. Like I have at a bunch of my mansions out there, like the one in Delaware, man. I spend 40% of my time up there. It's unclear how environmental justice differs from what had heretofore simply been justice. Yeah, but we don't need to get bogged down in the weeds on that one. Stock market regulators mandate green accounting. Sorry, what? Under the DOJ's new environmental justice strategy, gathering evidence of environmental crimes will be facilitated by a new directive, such as the Security and Exchange Commission. So the stock market gets regulated because of my environment? Okay. That requires listed companies to publish audited reports of all CO2 emissions and climate-related risks. For the fucking stock market. Are you retarded? Yes, you are, because you're adhering to ESG, which has crippled a fucking country in the 21st century. Okay, in October of 2021, the Department of Labor under Biden's administration instituted a new rule that allows private pension funds to invest on ideological grounds, again revoking a Trump administration rule, which limited pension investing exclusively by maximizing investor returns. Similarly, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, a bank regulator, overturned a Trump administration rule that prohibited banks from engaging in blanket discrimination against politically disfavored industries. Yeah, but that's fine now. This gave the green light to banks to shun firearm industry, coal plants, oil drilling in Alaska, and others that are disfavored by ESG ideology. Because you remember, guys, you will own nothing and you will like it. Other activist agencies under Biden included the Department of the Interior, which in September revoked drilling permits to 113 oil and gas leases in Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota in response to environmental protests. Great, wonderful, fantastic. Activists legitimately run the fucking country. In some cases, the Biden administration's violation of the United States Constitution have been so flagrant that the courts have to step in to block them. Thankfully, there are still some safeguards. Why do you think they're so butthurt about the Supreme Court? An attempt by the Environmental Protection Agency to force electric utilities to switch from fossil fuels to wind and solar, for example, was struck down by the United States Supreme Court. Hey, in a landmark West Virginia v. EPA decision, in a 6-3 ruling, the court stated only Congress has the power to legislate industrial energy policy. It ruled that an unelected executive agency such as EPA lacked the constitutional authority to effectively create laws on major questions of this magnitude. And that's how you kind of forestall all this shit from happening, okay? Putting good people in place, okay? Actually knowing that your vote's going to matter, not just giving up any agency to just some nebulous theory that's out there being pushed by the actual globalist cabal, okay? This shit is coming, but you can fight back against it as long as you know what you are fighting against. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.